55,000 people made a choice that shocked the world. They ignored the warnings of powerful nations. They defied pressure, threats, and doubt. All for one simple reason: hope. What would drive an entire community to risk everything for a single decision? And why did they choose a distant land over the powers that controlled their fate? Watch closely, because this story is not just about survival. It is about courage, identity, and a choice that could change everything. The morning air tasted like salt and ice. Aputi stood on the pier and watched the fog lift. Behind him were 55,000 voices. They were tired of being spoken for. They were tired of being invisible. The old maps on the council wall felt heavy. Lines drawn far away had decided their lives. Promises had come and gone. So had help. Aputi remembered his grandmother's words. Hope is not loud. Hope is stubborn. The room smelled of strong tea and wool coats. Elders sat with straight backs. Young parents held sleeping children. A screen glowed with news from powerful capitals. Warnings filled the headlines. Threats were dressed as advice. Aputi listened to the wind outside. It carried the sound of the sea. He thought of a country he had never seen. He thought of warmth without erasing identity. He thought of a place that listened before it judged. Thailand appeared in conversations like a quiet lamp. Not perfect, but patient. Not rich in promises, but rich in welcome. The vote was not easy. Hands trembled. Eyes closed. Memories of pressure pressed hard. When the decision was spoken, the room went silent. Not from fear. From responsibility. Aputi felt the weight settle on his chest. Choosing hope meant choosing uncertainty. Choosing dignity meant risking comfort. Outside, the fog finally cleared. The sea reflected a pale sun. Aputi stepped forward to speak. His voice surprised even himself. And in that moment he realized the lesson was not about where they were going. It was about who they were choosing to become. Aputi felt the room breathe with him. Every face waited, not for certainty, but for courage. He spoke of snow that cracked without warning. He spoke of hunting paths lost to melting ice. He spoke of children asking questions with no simple answers. The elders nodded slowly. They had seen seasons change before, but never this fast. Outside, a helicopter sound faded in the distance. Powerful nations were already watching, already calculating. Phones vibrated on the table. Messages arrived without greetings. Pressure wrapped itself in polite language. Aputi did not look at the screen. He looked at a young boy near the door. The child was drawing boats on paper. Warm seas. Bright flags. A future imagined without fear. Aputi remembered his first hunt. His hands had shaken then too. Fear never meant weakness. It meant something mattered. The council hall creaked as people shifted. Someone whispered a prayer. Someone else wiped quiet tears. Aputi continued. He spoke of identity not as land, but as memory, as language carried in breath, as values carried in action. He said survival without dignity was only delay. Silence followed his words. Deep, heavy, honest. Then one elder stood. Her hair was white as winter. Her eyes were sharp as stars. She spoke of storms that taught patience. She spoke of choosing allies who listen, not masters who command. Her voice never rose, yet it filled the room. Outside, clouds moved slowly. Light touched the edge of the pier. A sign of change, or simply time passing. Both felt the same. Another message arrived. This one carried numbers. Sanctions. Warnings. Predictions of isolation. Fear tried again. Aputi felt it. He did not deny it. He acknowledged it. Then he remembered the grandmother's voice. Hope is stubborn. He looked around. These people were not running. They were choosing. There was a difference. A young mother stood next. Her child clung to her coat. She spoke softly. She said she wanted a future where her child could choose freely. Not inherit silence. Not inherit fear. The room shifted again. Momentum gathered. Not loud, not dramatic, but steady, like ice forming thick enough to hold weight. Outside, the sea changed color. Dark blue turned lighter. The fog was almost gone now. Aputi noticed reporters gathering beyond the pier. Cameras pointed. Questions prepared. Narratives ready. He knew their story would be simplified. Misunderstood. Judged. But this decision was not for headlines. It was for mornings yet to come. For names yet to be spoken. For songs yet to be sung. A map lay open on the table. It showed distance. Oceans. Borders. But it did not show trust. It did not show shared meals. It did not show listening. Aputi touched the map lightly. Paper was fragile. People were not. A final vote was called to confirm the path. Hands rose again. More steady this time. Fear had not vanished. But it no longer ruled. Outside, the sun finally broke through. It reflected off the water. Blinding for a moment. Aputi shielded his eyes. Then smiled. Because light always took effort to face. The door to the hall opened. Cold air rushed in. With it came voices from the outside world. Questions. Doubts. Demands. Aputi stepped toward the doorway. He knew the next words would matter. Not just to those watching, but to those listening inside themselves. His heart beat slow and strong. And as he opened his mouth to speak to the world, he understood something deeper. This was not the end of their struggle. It was the moment they accepted the cost of believing in their own worth. The cameras clicked like insects. Microphones stretched forward. Aputi felt the cold bite his cheeks. He welcomed it. Cold reminded him he was alive. He raised his hand. The noise softened. Not silence, but attention. He spoke slowly. Not for drama. For truth. He said they were not running from anyone. They were walking toward respect. He said small nations understood listening, because they had been ignored before. A reporter asked about pressure. Aputi answered without anger. Pressure reveals character, not destiny. Another voice asked about fear. He nodded. Fear was present. But fear had never built a future. Only courage did. Behind him, the council hall stood firm. Old wood. New resolve. Inside, people listened through speakers. Some held hands. Some closed eyes. The wind shifted again, carrying the smell of seaweed and fuel. Ships waited offshore. Not moving. Watching. Time stretched. A message arrived from far away. An invitation. Then another. A warning. The phone buzzed again and again. Aputi placed it face down. For once, the world could wait. He thought of Thailand again. Not as a destination, but as a symbol. A symbol of choosing partnership over control. Warmth without erasure. Structure without suffocation. He imagined markets full of sound. Language mixing without losing meaning. Children learning two histories. Not one replacing the other. The idea felt fragile, like glass. But glass could be strong when shaped with care. An elder joined him outside. She stood beside him, without speaking. Her presence was enough. The cameras caught it. 2 generations. 1 decision. The sky shifted colors. Gray to silver. Silver to pale blue. Change did not arrive suddenly. It arrived honestly. Inside the hall, a bell rang. A signal. The council had drafted the declaration. Words that could not be taken back. Ink waited. So did consequences. Aputi felt his chest tighten. This was the moment after belief. The moment of action. He stepped back inside. The air was warmer. Heavy with breath and hope. The document lay on the table. Simple. Clear. Firm. No insults. No begging. Only intention. He read each line slowly. Every word carried weight. Every pause carried history. When he reached the final line, he stopped. Not from doubt. From respect. He looked around. Faces met his. Some smiled softly. Some trembled. All were ready. Aputi picked up the pen. It felt heavier than it should. He thought of future mornings. Of children waking without inherited fear. Of elders resting knowing they chose. Not surrendered. Outside, the world leaned closer. Inside, time held its breath. The pen hovered above the paper. And in that suspended moment, Aputi understood the truest lesson. Choosing hope does not remove risk. It accepts it. The ink had not yet touched the page. The room was so quiet that breathing sounded loud. Aputi could hear his own heartbeat. Slow. Deliberate. The pen hovered, not shaking, waiting. Outside, a distant horn echoed across the water. A reminder that the world kept moving, whether they were ready or not. Aputi lowered the pen slightly. Not to sign. To think. He remembered the first time he felt powerless. He had been a boy. A decision had been announced on the radio. Men far away. Voices confident. Lives altered without permission. His father had turned the volume down. Not off. Just quieter. That silence had taught Aputi something. Power often feared listening. He lifted the pen again. Ink waited patiently. Across the table, a young council member swallowed hard. Her fingers pressed into the wood. She met Aputi's eyes. There was no question in them. Only resolve. The elder beside the door shifted her weight. Her cane tapped once. A grounding sound. The kind that steadied storms inside the chest. Aputi leaned forward. The pen touched the paper lightly. Not yet moving. Just contact. The ink bled into the fibers. A dark point. Permanent. A breath moved through the room. Not relief. Recognition. This was real now. He paused again. Not because of doubt. Because he understood something new. Every generation faced a moment like this. A moment when comfort and dignity parted ways. Most people never noticed it. They stepped around it. Called it realism. Called it patience. But this moment demanded a choice. The pen moved a fraction. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the windows. The flag near the pier snapped sharply. Cameras caught the movement. Commentators filled the silence with speculation. Inside the hall, no one spoke. Aputi wrote the first curve of his name. Slow. Intentional. Ink followed his will. Each letter felt like a step onto thin ice. Measured. Tested. But holding. As he wrote, images surfaced. Markets full of color. Hands exchanging goods and stories. Classrooms where questions were welcomed. Children switching between languages without shame. Elders teaching tradition without apology. Not as relics. As roots. The pen paused mid-name. Aputi felt the weight return. What if warmth softened resolve? What if welcome came with conditions? What if hope was misread as weakness? The thoughts came uninvited. He did not push them away. He examined them. Fear was a tool. It could sharpen judgment. Or dull courage. He chose how to use it. He continued writing. The name took shape. Clear. Unmistakable. A murmur rippled through the room. Not celebration. Acknowledgement. One by one, others stepped forward. The pen passed hands. Different grips. Different rhythms. Each signature unique. Each permanent. Time moved strangely. Fast and slow together. Outside, messages exploded across screens. Markets reacted. Officials convened. Statements were drafted. Inside the hall, none of that mattered. Here, people watched ink dry. The elder signed last. Her hand was steady. Years had trained it. She placed the pen down gently, as if setting a sleeping child into a cradle. She nodded once. That nod carried decades. Aputi exhaled fully for the first time. Not relief. Commitment. The document was lifted, held carefully, as if it could break. Yet it felt stronger than steel. The door opened again. This time wider. Sound rushed in. Questions sharpened by urgency. Aputi stepped forward once more. He held the document at his side. Not raised. Not hidden. Present. A reporter shouted about consequences. Another about retaliation. Another about regret. Aputi listened. He let them finish. Then he spoke. He said choice was never free. It always cost something. He said dignity was expensive, but submission was more costly. The wind carried his words outward. Across water. Across cables. Across borders. Some faces hardened. Some softened. Some turned away. Inside the hall, people gathered close. No cheering. No tears. Just quiet strength. Aputi felt something settle inside him.
Not certainty.
Alignment. The sun dipped lower. Lights stretched long across the pier. Shadows grew. Not threatening. Honest. Aputi looked back at his people. They were not celebrating. They were preparing. Because hope was not an ending. It was work. And as the first official response began to arrive from a powerful nation across the sea, Aputi realized the true test had not yet begun. The message arrived without ceremony. No greeting. No warmth. Just words shaped like leverage. Aputi read it once. Then again. The tone was firm. Calculated. It spoke of stability. Of consequences. Of reconsideration. The elder beside him did not ask to see it. She already knew. Power always spoke the same language. Only the accent changed. Outside, the crowd had grown. Some faces curious. Some skeptical. Some openly afraid. Fear traveled faster than truth. Aputi stepped away from the doorway. Back into the hall. The walls felt closer now. Not because they had moved. Because responsibility had. He gathered the council again. Not to debate. To prepare. He spoke of nights when storms trapped hunters far from home. Panic killed faster than cold. Planning saved lives. They listed what they could lose. Funding.
Trade.
Protection. They listed what they could keep. Language.
Choice.
Self-respect. The lists were uneven. But honest. A young man spoke up. His voice cracked. He asked what happened if Thailand said no. The question lingered. Aputi answered carefully. Then this choice would still matter. Because asking for dignity did not depend on acceptance. It depended on courage. Silence followed. Not disappointment. Understanding. Outside, the light faded. Generators hummed on. The world did not pause for their clarity. A call came in. Then another. Some friendly. Some cold. All curious. No one neutral. Aputi noticed how quickly allies appeared when a stand was taken. Not to help. To influence. He declined interviews. He requested time. Time was the rarest currency. Inside the hall, food was shared. Simple.
Warm.
Soup steamed in bowls. Bread passed hand to hand. These small rituals mattered. They reminded everyone what they were protecting. Aputi sat apart for a moment. He watched people eat. Laugh softly. Whisper plans. This was not a movement. It was a community. That difference mattered. A screen lit up at the far end of the room. A new message. This one different.
Short.
Respectful. From a Thai academic delegation. No promises. No politics. Only curiosity. Only willingness to listen. Aputi felt something shift. Not triumph.
Possibility.
He shared the message. The room reacted quietly.
Nods.
Straightened backs. Attention sharpened. Hope did not explode. It gathered.
Carefully.
The elder smiled for the first time that day. Not wide, but real. She said listening was the rarest gift in diplomacy. Outside, the wind calmed. Snow began to fall lightly. Each flake distinct. Temporary. Beautiful. Aputi walked to the window. He watched the flakes melt as they touched the glass. Change always carried loss. But also renewal. Another message arrived. This one less polite. More urgent. More threatening. The contrast was clear. One side demanded obedience. The other offered conversation. Aputi understood the lesson forming. Power feared example more than rebellion. If one small people chose dignity, others might notice. That was the real danger. He turned back to the council.
His voice was steady.
He said the next days would test them. Not with force. With fatigue. With doubt. With isolation. He said unity would not feel heroic. It would feel boring. Repetitive. Unnoticed. But that was how endurance was built. Outside, the snow thickened. Footsteps slowed. The world softened. Inside, maps were updated. Committees formed. Tasks assigned. Not glamorous. Necessary. Aputi felt exhaustion creep in, but beneath it was something stronger.
Purpose.
As night settled fully, as messages continued to arrive from every direction, as the first official reply from Thailand was scheduled but not yet sent, Aputi realized the story the world would tell was already being written. The only question left was whether they would recognize themselves in it when the answer finally came. Night wrapped the settlement in a deep blue silence. Snow muted every sound. Even the sea seemed to breathe more slowly. Inside the hall, lights stayed on. Faces looked tired, but eyes stayed awake. Aputi sat with his back against the wall. A notebook rested on his knees. He did not write. He listened. Whispers of logistics. Questions about schools. Concerns about elders traveling. Small details surfaced now. Big decisions always gave birth to smaller fears. Aputi welcomed them. Fear spoken aloud lost some of its power. A young teacher approached him. She spoke about language, about children already caught between worlds. She asked how to protect identity while inviting change. Aputi answered honestly. He said identity survived when it was practiced. Not hidden, not frozen, shared. She nodded slowly, not fully convinced, but willing to try. That was enough. Across the room, elders discussed ceremony. What traditions must travel intact? What could adapt? They argued gently, respectfully. This was not resistance. This was care. Outside, a drone passed overhead. A low hum. A reminder. They were being watched. Aputi felt anger rise. Then he let it pass. Anger burned fast. Endurance burned long. He stood and stretched. His body ached. Leadership always arrived with pain. He walked to the center of the hall. He did not call for attention. It came anyway.
He spoke again.
Not with fire. With clarity. He reminded them why they chose. Not to escape hardship, but to face it with dignity. He said pressure would increase. Voices would grow louder. Offers would come with strings. Threats would arrive dressed as concern. He told them to watch how people spoke. Those who respected them would ask questions. Those who wanted control would demand answers. The difference mattered. Heads nodded. Notes were taken. Outside, the storm strengthened. Wind pushed snow sideways. Visibility dropped. Flights were delayed. Messages slowed. For a brief moment, they were alone. Truly alone.
Aputi felt relief in that.
Silence allowed thought. He thought of Thailand again. Not as savior, but as mirror. A nation that had bent without breaking. Absorbed without disappearing. He knew the image was imperfect. All images were. But hope did not require perfection. Only direction. A radio crackled to life. A foreign broadcast. Speculation filled the airwaves. Experts debated their intelligence, their motives, their survival odds. None of those voices were Inuit. Aputi turned the radio down. Not off. Just quieter. He smiled at the memory. History repeated itself. But so did resistance. A messenger entered the hall. Breathless. Cheeks red from cold. He carried printed pages. Statements released by a major power. Words like irresponsible, destabilizing, naive. The room absorbed the blow. Aputi watched shoulders tense. Hands clench. He waited. Then spoke. He said labels were easier than listening. He said being underestimated was dangerous. For those doing the underestimating, that earned a few quiet smiles. The elder tapped her cane again. Once.
Twice.
The sound calmed the room. She spoke softly. She said storms did not ask permission. They arrived. Survival depended on preparation, not approval. Her words settled like weight. Comforting.
Real.
Hours passed. Plans grew more detailed. Contacts were listed. Languages identified. Legal pathways examined. This was no longer symbolic. It was operational. Aputi felt pride stir. Not loud.
Steady.
Near dawn, exhaustion took its toll. Some slept sitting up. Blankets were shared. Lights dimmed. Aputi stepped outside briefly. The cold shocked his lungs. Stars cut through the clouds. Sharp. unapologetic. He looked up. So many generations had looked at the same sky. They had survived worse. With less. He whispered a promise.
Not to the sky.
To himself. Inside, a screen flickered. An alert. A preliminary response. Not official. Not final. But real. From Thailand. A statement acknowledging their request. Respectful. Careful. Non-committal. But open. The words open dialogue stood out. Aputi felt something shift again. Like ice groaning before movement. He gathered the council once more. They read the statement together. No cheering. No tears. Just silence. Heavy. Hopeful. Dangerous. Aputi spoke quietly. He said this was where patience mattered most. He said rushing would weaken them. He said dignity was proven not in choosing, but in waiting. Outside, the first light of morning appeared.
Pale.
Cold.
Honest.
A new day began. And with it, the longest part of their journey. Because now the world was listening. And listening was only the beginning. The morning was calm. Snow melted slowly into the sea. A gentle wind carried the smell of salt and earth. Inside the hall, the council gathered one last time. They held the document. Each signature a promise. Each line a choice. Aputi looked around. Faces reflected exhaustion, but also quiet pride. Not a single person doubted the path they had taken. The elder rose slowly. She held the pen in her hand for a moment, then placed it carefully on the table. Her eyes met each person's gaze. You have chosen yourselves, she said. Her voice was soft, but it carried the weight of generations. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds. Its light shimmered on the waves. Aputi stepped to the doorway. He watched the horizon. He thought of the road ahead. It would be long. It would not be easy. But now, they were not invisible. Now they were seen. Thailand's reply would come. Other nations would react. Pressure would arrive again. Yet, the people inside the hall had learned something profound. Courage was not the absence of fear. It was the choice to act in spite of it. Dignity was not inherited. It was claimed. And hope was not a gift. It was a decision. Aputi raised his hand, not to command, but to acknowledge. Each member of the council returned the gesture. A silent promise passed between them. They would face what came together. They would protect who they were. And they would do it with integrity. The wind shifted again, warmer this time. It carried the sound of children laughing, of elders speaking softly, of life continuing, unbroken. Aputi took a deep breath. The journey had not ended. It had only begun. But for the first time in generations, he felt the weight of possibility. And he knew, no matter what the world demanded, they had chosen something greater than fear. They had chosen themselves. The hall fell into quiet again. But it was not silence. It was the steady hum of hope. And for the Inuit people, for the first time in decades, that was enough.